ತೆರಿಗೆ ಮರಳಿ ನಿನ್ನ ಊರಿಗೆ, ಮಳೆಯ ಎಳೆಯುವ ತೇರಿಗೆ ಹಸಿರು ಏರಿದ ಏರಿಗೆ, ಹಸಿರು ಸೇರಿದೆ ಊರಿಗೆ, ಹಸಿರು ಚಾಚಿದೆ ದಾರಿಗೆ, ನಂದನ ತುಣುಕೊಂದು ಬಿದ್ದಿದೆ ನೋಟ ಸೇರದು ಯಾರಿಗೆ. Very good evening, members. Ravindra Prayer, Chairman of Bangalore Branch, wholeheartedly welcome you all for the 65th Jnana Dasova live webcast session from Bangalore Branch. Today we have a very unique session, and I know members have got relief little bit for the extension of the due date of annual returns for the year 2018-19. Today's session is recent technical developments in GSTN portal, including e-invoicing. It's going to be addressed by none other than CA Annapurna D. Kabra and Dr. B.V. Murali Krishna, Additional Commissioner of Commercial Taxes, E-Governance Commercial Tax Department, Bangalore. On behalf of Managing Committee members of Bangalore Branch and on behalf of all the viewers, I wholeheartedly welcome Madam CA Annapurna D. Kabra for the today's session. Welcome you, Madam.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Dr. B.V. Murali Krishna is going to join in a few minutes. In his absence here, I wholeheartedly welcome Dr. B.V. Murali Krishna for the today's session. Members, as you know, the updates, I can give the two updates from one is, as you are aware, the extension of membership fees. 30th September was the due date. So IC has extended more months for paying your membership fee. That another one note is that you have to be pay the membership fee in SSP portal only, self-help desk portal only. So kindly register for the SSP portal for paying the membership fees. In this regard, Bangalore Branch is going to launching in few days, couple of days, SSP help desk. That help desk is working as a just a middleman. It's a bridge between the ICA head office where the call center has been established for resolving the members' queries. So we managing committee has approved for taking this initiative to open the launching the SSP help desk portal. Definitely it will going to help our members. And coming to the GST, add 1 month has been extended annual returns for the 2018-19. The today's topic is an important topic. You all aware that more aggregate more than 500 crores turnover from tomorrow. There is an e-invoicing is going to be effect from October 1st. So rightly we are having these sessions today is from experts, one from our member side, one from department side. I think Dr. B.V. Murali Krishna sir has joined right now. So I once again wholeheartedly welcome Murali Krishna sir for the today's sessions. Members, will not take much time. I wholeheartedly welcome all the viewers for your active participation for the Bangalore Branch program and supporting for with your active participation from last 65 programs. It is a 65th program, and today's personality from department is joining as speaker, and you can also a special guest for this witnessing for the today's 65th sessions. So once again, I wholeheartedly welcomed C. Annapurna D. Kabra and Dr. B.V. Murali Krishna for the today's session. I request our Bangalore Branch Secretary Srinivas to formally introduce both the speakers for the gathering. Over to Srinivas.
Thank you, Chairman, for rendering welcome address. It's a very interesting session on recent technical developments in the GSTN portal, including e-invoicing. We can have the same program tomorrow also, because by the end of closing this program, there may be changes in GSTN, I think. And it's my proud privilege to introduce two interesting personalities for today's program to talk on technical subjects on GSTN. The person, he believes in Phileas word, that is, success is no accident, it is a hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrifice, and most of all, love of what you are doing or learning to do. is none other than Dr. B. Murali Krishna. Welcome you, sir. As an additional commissioner of commercial taxes, is a good athlete and you can say Janara Manamuttida Adhikari, very friendly among the members and traders. If you see his educational qualification is a Master of Veterinary Science, but he has done major surgery in so many technical aspects in GST and VAT. Because Murali Krishna, as you say, Sutradhari. So he's a Sutradhari for e-invoicing, e-pass, so many other technical things, and a very knowledgeable and very interesting personality. Is a presently is a member of Big Data Analytics IMB, member IT Grievance Redressal Committee Karnataka Nodal Officer for GSTN and e-way bill, Nodal Officer for IT Committee GSTN Karnataka. He has got trained in so many places in India and abroad. Major, I can say this IMB and USA, Singapore, Nairobi, so many other places on subject matter. And he has presented papers on various forums, including CA, CWA, CS, trade bodies, trade unions, and so many other places, and conducted more than 140 workshops in implementing e-UPass and more than 200 workshops with respect to GST implementation. Hosted GST Bootcamp e-invoice system on 4th September 2020 with more than 1,400 participants. And visual media is very popular. If you click B.V. Murali Krishna, you can see so many speeches on his YouTube and regarding lectures on UPass, and he has given actively participated in various TV programs, live program on tax matters, including almost all the channels. With this brief introduction, I once again welcome you, sir. I present before you Dr. B.V. Murali Krishna. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Sigmas. Thank you, Ravindra Kore. I think it's a detailed introduction. I'm overwhelmed for all your chartered accountants, and let me do what best I can do after Annapurna Kapna speeches. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
And we have one more interesting personality, our own family member, none other than CA Annapurna D. Kabra. She has completed her DISA and DIRM course as conducted by ICA. She has authored and co-authored many books on VAT, GST, and she has assisted in drafting background material on GST for ICA technical guide. She presented papers on national and international forums on indirect taxes. She is an expert in indirect taxes. She addressed tax practitioners, dealers, department officers, and she is a regular faculty for Fiscal Policy Institute. She is also a State Tax Committee member of FKCCI. With this brief introduction, I present before you Annapurna D. Kabra. Welcome you, madam. Over to you.
Before handing over, madam, to just morning we are thinking about the today's sessions, how it will go, whether the dates will get extended or not. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಮೇಡಮ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದೆ ನಾವು ಒಂದ್ಸಾರಿ ಹೆಜ್ಜೆ ಮುಂದಿಟ್ರೆ ಹಿಂದೆ ಇಡೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಡೇಟ್ ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡೇ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗೋಣ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಟುಡೇ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಡ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಸ್, as you know, B.V. Krishna sir, you know many chartered accounts, more than 1,000 chartered accounts, you can say a number of chartered accounts, and that much interaction is having and affection is having for our fraternity. So special thanks to the Murali Krishna sir for addressing our members, because here is the government, left side is the government, right side chartered accounts, the middle is right is the public. We are in the bridge. So for that bridge, the more helping hand is in the department is Dr. B.V. Murali Krishna. It's nice today sir is also joining with our Madam Annapurna Kabra. Thank you, madam. Over to madam. Unmute, madam, please.
Yeah, this is the, yeah. Thank you, Bangalore branch of SIRC for giving us an opportunity. And thank you, Murali Krishna sir. I think this is the 4th time we are taking the session together. And somehow we were having a casual talk, and we decided why can't we take something on the recent development in GSTN portal. So just casually we were talking, and then we decided that we'll discuss on this recent development. And any of your technical pictures, any of your grievances, please approach to Murali Krishna sir today, because I am the only starter kind of thing. The whole food will be provided by Murali Krishna sir. So in brief, I'll be taking some of the amendments in the GSTN portal. So macro level, Murali Krishna sir will be handling on e-invoicing and all other macro topic on amendments in GSTN portal. And we'll be just taking up last recent amendments, though the law is very recent, but still we'll be only covering the last recent amendments which has taken place in GSTN portal. So with this, let me start the session. And thank you, Ravindra Kore, Srinivas sir, for organizing this session. Hope it will be benefit to the members. And I believe that most of the members are little relaxed today, because somehow it got extended, because till afternoon we all were under a pressure of completing the task today. But anyway, we got extended of 1 month. So let us relax today and let us try to understand what all recent development has taken place in GSTN portal. With this, I'll start the session. So thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Let us first start the session. So I think we all members many times know more GSTN law than GST law actually. So this is also a separate set of law, I can say, which is there in GSTN, and you all know it is a robust system with full of informations, and every day we are licensing with the GSTN portal for many services. Already we get access to this GSTN portal by accessing to the website of www.gst.gov. And always the CBIC and the State Tax Department, they always act as a backend to the system. Because for example, if I'm applying for registration, I log into the system and I make an application. But ultimately the approval and the verification of the data is done by the officials. So that's why they are working on the backend of this portal. And whatever we are doing with the system, that is nothing but a front end of the GSTN portal. So always this department acts as an intermediary for administration process like registration, adjudications, refund. So many administration processes are done by the department officials. So generally what this GSTN will provide in day-to-day activities, it provides like you can file your registration application, you can file your returns, you can create your challenge for tax payment, you can go for IGST payment settlement, or a lot of other reports, intelligence report, analytical report, all that can get generated in the GSTN portal. So this is just a background of GSTN portal. So as you all know, members, generally these are the major services which are given by the GSTN. And as you are aware, we are filing this appeal also online. We are filing application for registration online. So everything has converted into a digitization. Everything is converted into an online system. So there is no manual system of filing from the point of registration till the date of adjudication or appeal. Everything has come out on a online process. If you want to generate a delivery challenge, earlier we were using the manual system. Now it has come as a e-way bill. So more or less we get all this information. We get to generate all this type of statutory forms, challenge informations only through a GSTN portal. So these are the kind of functions which is performed by GSTN. So many times we have seen that there is always a inconsistency or there is lack of synchronization between this GST law and GSTN portal. That's where we face the issues actually when we are complying with the law. I think most of the members would have experienced during the last date of filing of your returns. You will see that it is showing lot of errors, and it's I think most of the experience are done from last 3 years. But compared to first year, we can see that now we have its better compatibility is there, and you can file it in a better way now. So it has been improved. Even the policy makers are also quietly proactive in bringing lot of amendments in the GSTN portal based on our issues and problems. So I think with that we have to appreciate the efforts put on by the GST policy makers for amending the GSTN portal. We can make out the chart from the first year how we were facing the technical issues, and after these 3 years also we can see that lot of amendments has taken place in the GSTN portal in the interest of trade and business. We understand that there is always the lack of synchronization, because something is announced today, but by the time it is implemented in the portal, it will take sometimes a gap of 3 months, 6 months. So we always face a transitional issues between the implementation of the law and implementation of the compliances through GSTN portal. So let us try to understand what all we were just looking on the amendments. So the vision of GSTN portal is, I was just reading somewhere, it is a vision of fully automated ecosystem. So everything will get technologically driven. I think the way every day we are seeing the different type of forms and different type of statements, it gives a indication that everything is going to get automized. So there will be nothing as manual. So everything will go with the fully automated ecosystem. So sir will talk on this better in a better manner when he's going to talk on e-invoices and other aspects. Now, what we were presuming from last 6 months, we were facing all these issues. Now, let us see like how it has been implemented now. So, one is we always found that there should be an enhancement of the capacity of GSTN portal, because so many data are getting created, so many times we face the issues with the GSTN portal. So, we always believe that there should be always a enhancement in the capacity of this GSTN common portal. And for example, I'll just give you one simple example when we are working with the GST law and when we are working with the GST law. For example, in section 170 of GST law, it says that you can round off your taxes to nearest rupee. But when we are working in the GSTN portal, it is taking some 2 decimal points. So this is the just an example between the GST law and GSTN implementation. So it's something we have the synchronization issues many times. So let us see how we can take it further. And GSTR1 returns do not allow multiple BTCS amendments. So these were the all presumptions we were having from last. So whenever we were filing the returns, like functionality to link multiple invoices, or non-availability of date of filing of GST returns of vendor, or no possibility to track the amendment of any invoices, inability to provide negative values in GSTR3B. So these are the issues which we will facing. New return, whether it will get scrapped or whether it will be implemented, and whether there will be any matching tool to verify the details of suppliers and two-way, whether there will be any communication form between the supplier and the vendor and the recipient, whether my portal will disclose the status of registrations, whether my portal will disclose the status of refund status, whether the portal is giving what are the possible errors and how to resolve it. So these all are always there whenever we are filing the return. We try to search out this. Is there anything where the GSTN has implemented on these issues also? And whenever we are trying to download two-way in an Excel form, it is not taking the capacity beyond certain entries. And every time we have to download monthly. So is it something the further amendment has taken place whenever we are going to work on this type of form? So these all are the different type of presumptions I'm just taking. And we have to see which are already been implemented. Like whether there is any additional columns in form GSTR2, which is giving the date of GSTR1 and 3P. Whether there is any amended invoices which is implemented in 2A, whether IGST paid on import of goods can I look in the GSTN portal, or I should see the ICGATE portal, or whether this 3B can calculate automatically whatever I have disclosed in my GSTR1. So these were the certain expectations which we were having when we were filing our GSTR1, 3B and all other returns. So these are the back end which we were expecting. Now let us see what has been already been implemented. So my next slide will have these were the only presumptions. Now we will be showing which had already been implemented in GSTN portal. The first most expected is simplification of refund process. I think if you see the multiple circulars which are issued for refund, we will find that they have explained in a detailed manner in a circular, that is especially 135 and 124, which is issued in November 2019. This is giving a better clarity of the procedures for filing a refund claim. So one of the issue was, it was already clarified in the and can file the year. Because earlier there was a circular 37/2018 which was saying that you can file the refund application, one application per year. Whereas now the circular has come in 135/2020, it states that you can file one refund application for multiple years. This will really save a lot of our exporters who were accumulating their input tax credit but were not having the exports in the respective years, and they were having the realizations in the subsequent years. So because of this, many times they were losing the input tax credit, or they were not able to claim the refund of that input tax credit. So now with this amendment in the GSTN portal and with this amendment in the circular, now the applicant can file the refund application for more than 1 year. That is, one application he can file for more than one financial year. So for example, if the refund is pending between 1st January 2020 to 30th/6/2020, that is up to June, then it will be a 2 financial year. So now the technical update has been made in the GSTN portal where you can file one application for 2 different financial years, that is 1920 and 2021. Though the time limit of 2 years still remain for filing the refund application, but you can file one application for multiple financial year. This is the one of the welcome amendment in the GST law. And please remember, members, whenever you are filing a refund application, and if you are receiving a deficiency memo, either you see that you rectify that deficiency memo, or else if it is rejected, you have to make again a fresh application, and that will be the date considered for filing your refund application. So be clear whenever you are receiving a deficiency memo against a refund application, because that is automated already in the portal. So this is the way you can see in the portal. What is, you can select a period like from 30, if you want to claim from 18 to 20, whatever it is period you want to claim, you can mention from period to period, and the portal itself is saying that you can file RFD1. RFD1 is nothing but application for refund. You can file for different financial years. So this is the first amendment which has taken place in GSTN portal. Now the second important is, though it is it was expected quite earlier, but now they have made an amendment here. They have stated that they have added certain more functionalities in the return itself. So generally the electronic commerce operator will be filing GSTR 8. So whenever they are going to file a GSTR 8, there is a table 4 which is pertaining to a amendment of certain details of suppliers. So earlier it was allowing to amend only once a time, but now they have added the functionality in the portal in such a manner that you can make multiple amendments of your supplier. So that is the easy for this e-commerce operator to amend the invoice and update the correct details in their GSTR 8. So this is the first amendment of TCS. And second is TCS facility extended to composition taxpayer. It means what? The composition taxpayer, whenever they are taking the services of e-commerce operator, they have been given the option to accept the TCS credit. In case if they accept the TCS credit, it will be credited to their cash ledger. But if they want to reject the TCS, if the amount is not correct or if other details are not correct, they can reject the TCS credit form, and automatically that form will be reflected in the e-commerce operator website, and accordingly he can see where there is a variance between supplier and this composition taxpayer. Please remember, here this is applicable only for a restaurant service and not for traders and manufacturers. So that we have to be very clear. Then, as you all know, filing of GSTR 4, they have made it as an annual return. Earlier, GSTR 4 was a quarterly return, but from 1/4/2019, they have made it as an annual return. So till 31/3/2019, you have to file quarterly GSTR 4 if you have opted for a composition scheme. But from 1/4/2019, you have to file only one annual return, that is GSTR 4, and quarterly you have to make a payment through CMP 8. So that is the one where you have to make a payment and you have to file your annual return, that is GSTR 4. Please remember, we cannot file GSTR 4 if we have not made a payment through CMT 8. So without filing CMT 8, you cannot file a GSTR 4. And next important is, many times many dealers have issues whether we can we have to include purchase details also in our GSTR 4. Yes, according to my view, it has to be included whenever you are filing the GSTR 4. Even you have to give the details of your purchases also. So you have to go to the dashboard. You can click to the services. You can go to the respective returns. You can select an annual return. In that annual return, you will have an option for GSTR4 if you have opted for a composition scheme. Then next, I think this is the most recent amendment which many of the fraternity were approaching to the department, and department have made this amendment. But definitely, I think it has added the additional work to all of us, because we had to reconcile every time with our credit note, with our invoices, because now it has de-linked credit note and debit note in the GSTN portal. Earlier, whenever we were updating the credit note and debit note details, we also have to give the reference of our original invoice reference number also. But now they said it is not required, because it was mandatory required whenever you were filing your GSTR1 or GSTR6. But now they said it is not mandatory. You can give a credit note details and debit note details in respect of multiple invoices. So you can issue the credit note and debit note under this law, and you can make it under a multiple invoices. So if you look into the GSTN advisory, it is saying you can issue one credit note against multiple invoices, or multiple credit note against one invoices. So this is the way it is now allowing you to issue it and disclose it in your GSTR1 and GSTR6. But most important is you have to analyze which type of credit note it is. Is it a regular credit note, or is it that credit note pertaining to SEZ sales, or is it pertaining to deemed export sales or export sales? That classification you have to do it in your GSTR1 credit note. You have to bifurcate it, and accordingly you have to disclose it in your GSTR1 separately. And please remember, you should also identify the place of supply simultaneously. You can't give only the amount. You should also give is it whether an intrastate debit note or credit note, or is it a interstate debit note and credit note. That has to be updated in the GSTN portal. And this is the most common. Many times what happens, we issue the credit note or debit note only because of tax amount. There is no change in the taxable value, but there is only change in the tax amount. So because of that change in the tax amount, the form is allowing now to update only the tax amount, updating the taxable value. Taxable value in your, you can write 0, or many times because of technical issues it is not accepting. You can write 0.01 also, something you can try upon. But only if you put a tax amount, still it is accepting, and you can give the details of credit note, debit note with only tax amount without mentioning the taxable value. So only tax amount can be entered in such cases. This issue we had earlier, now this has been resolved. So similar changes have been made while reporting amendments to credit note or debit note. Now the next amendment is during when you are filing the refund also, we were having the issues, because we have to give the details of credit note, debit note linking to the original invoices. Now when you are filing the refund application, you need not give separately the details of credit note and debit note to linking with your invoices. You can give it by delinking with the invoices, and you can give the details of it separately while filing the refund applications. So it is similar like GSTR1. So however you are disclosing in GSTR1, similar way you have to disclose it whenever you are filing your refund applications. So this is one which has been already been implemented. Next is, I think we are hearing in various media that you can file nil return. You can file your nil return through SMS, or you can file through mobile. All that we are able to hear in this updates. So what is this exactly actually? So many of the dealers are there who are just registered, but they don't have any such transactions. So in that case, the option has been come in GSTN portal, where they have said you can just give us send a message to a respective number. So the respective number is 14409. Where you can just give a space, write as R1. R1 you have to write if it is a GSTR1, and you have to write 3B if it is a 3B you want to file it as a nil return, and put your GSTN number and give a period for which period you want to file a nil return, and send a message to 14409. You will get a 6 verification code. Please add that 6 verification code and again file it as a R1. So it is like a OTP. So again file it, you will get a ARN number. So once you get ARN number, it is deemed that you have filed your GSTR1 or GSTR3 through mobile itself. So this is the best way. Through SMS you can file it, and you can even access this whenever you want to see in the GSTN portal also. So it will not go through mobile. It can also be accessed in your GSTN portal that you have filed nil return. So this is the simplest way to file whenever you are not having any transactions. You can just put a message you can file your nil return, and whether it is 3B or GSTR1. Then the next amendment which has taken place in GSTN portal is Aadhaar authentications. I think now there is more of an integration of informations, or there is now more as a data validation of informations, whatever you are going to apply during a registration. So already if you have applied, there is no issues. But now if from 1/4/2020, if you are from this notification date, if you are planning to apply for a registrations, simultaneously you have to give your Aadhaar authentication number also. You have to link it with that Aadhaar authentication number with your email ID and phone number. Once it is getting linked with that, and within 3 days, the registration is deemed to be approved. But in case if the Aadhaar number is not validated, if there is some issues where you are not able to get your Aadhaar number as validated, then there is an option to the tax department to visit personally to your place of business and authenticate your Aadhaar card. And within 21 days, if they have not issued any show cause notice, it is deemed that they have approved your registrations. But if they have issued show cause notice within 21 days, then you have to reply for that show cause notice which is issued at the time when you have filed for the application for registrations. So this is the way it happens actually. This is just a chart to show you how it happens. So when you apply for new registrations, if Aadhaar is authenticated, they say yes, then you go to the link, you give your entire Aadhaar number, validate it, your registration is getting approved. Please remember, Aadhaar authentication link is even required for a authorized persons also, like promoter, partners, or authorized signatory. But if when you have applied for registrations and if your Aadhaar authentication is not approved, then it will go to the officer. Officer will be visiting your place of business, and officer has to approve for that registration. And within 3 days, if it is Aadhaar authentication route, if it is 21 days, if it is not through Aadhaar authentication route. So if you want the registration, if they are visiting personally, then it will take around 21 days for you to get a registration certificate, subject to validation and approval of the officers. So this is the way the process happens for Aadhaar authentication. Now the next is, I think most of the members are using this. There was always the issue that we had a balance in our electronic cash ledger, but we were not able to set up with our liabilities because earlier we were depositing our cash ledger in a different head of accounts. Either it can be a major head of accounts or minor head of accounts. What is major head of accounts? It can be your tax amount. And what is minor head of accounts? It can be your interest, it can be your penalty, it can be your late fee. So what was happening, we were not able to utilize the other head of amount for adjusting our liability. For example, by mistakenly I have deposited my cash in interest amount, or I have deposited in a penalty amount or late fee amount when I have deposited in a cash ledger. I was not able to utilize against my liability. So now through PMT 9, I can transfer my amount from one head of account in a cash ledger to a other head of accounts, and then I can set off with my liability. So what the rule is saying? Rule 87 sub rule 13. It was already been effective, but it has been implemented from 21st April 2020. So this is applicable if in case if you have wrongly deposited in different head of accounts, you can set off among those head of accounts, and you can use it that cash amount for adjusting your liability. So what I have said, GST PMT 9 is available on GSTN portal, and it enables a taxpayer to make intra-head or inter-head transfer of amount available in electronic cash ledger. A taxpayer can file GST PMT 09 for transfer of any amount of tax, interest, penalty, fee, or others available under major or minor head to another major or minor head in the electronic cash ledger. So this is the way it can be done. So for this, the assessee has to log in to the GSTN portal and navigate to the services. In that, go to the ledger, then click electronic cash ledger, and then you can go for file PMT 09 for transferring the amount from one head of accounts to a other head of accounts. So this is the next amendment in GST PMT 09. Then accordingly, the ARN will be generated and your electronic ledger will get updated after successful filing of that. Then this is a specific case. I thought it is to update the members that there is a new functionality in for registration of insolvency resolution professional or resolution professional. So they have made an amendment for this there is a circular notification specifically for this kind of special registered person. So they said the portal is also allowing IRPs and RP to get registered under GSTN portal, and they have to register as corporate debtor undergoing the corporate insolvency resolution process with IRP and IRP. They have to select that ahead and accordingly get registration. So once this IRP is getting registered, and in case if there is any further change in that IRP person, they need not go again for a fresh registration. They can only change it as a authorized signatory with all non-core amendments details. So the new registration, even the IRP can also file a registration through GSTN portal. So they have already added a module in the GSTN portal for IRP and RP professionals. So any change, if there is any change, it is deemed to be change of a only authorized signatory. He need not go again for a fresh registration. So the date of commencement of business will be date when he is appointed. So that point they are going to consider when they are going to apply for a registration. So they have to comply with this liability of filing 3B, filing GSTR1 from the date of their appointment. So this they have to take care of it, and accordingly that GSTN portal will get linked with their compliances. Next is, I think this was something which has taken place in June, July. During this pandemic period, we were seeing that like they are coming out with a revocation of cancellations, though the period span has over for applying for revocations. Though you would have filed an appeal also for revocation of cancellation, you can just withdraw that appeal and you can apply for revocation of cancellation. But I believe last month, I think the time is got over for revocation of cancellation now. But only thing they have made change in the portal is, earlier we were supposed to file the pending returns till the current date. For example, I have applied for this revocation of registration, say 1 month back. So, and today when they are issuing an order, I was supposed to file my returns till current date. So now they have made changes in that portal. They have said you have to file your return till the date of cancellation date. So you need not file the returns to further to that period, because your input tax credit will get affected. Your input tax credit will get stuck if they are going to give that pending returns till the date of your current date. So accordingly, they have made changes in the portal itself, because this was creating the issues to many of the dealers. Their input tax credit they were not able to take because of this cancellation of registration or because of this revocation of registration as pending. So now they have made changes saying that it is only up to the cancellation date. You please file your pending returns. Then accordingly, the revocation order will be issued. So that way, this is the major changes which they have made it in the GSTN portal itself, because GSTN portal was automated in such a manner that it was not accepting until you are filing the returns till the current date. Now they have made a changes in the portal itself saying that only till the cancellation date you can file your returns. So this is one amendment which has happened, and GST 4 amendment application was getting deemed approved if due date has passed. Now deemed approval has been disabled for such application. There was some lacuna in that in portal, where when you are filing it was automatically updated, though that period of 30 days or 60 days was getting expired. Now they have disabled in that GSTN portal for a revocation of cancellation. So systems errors are rectified for registration of place of business. So wherever we were having these issues in the GSTN portal for a place of business and system errors, that is being rectified in the GSTN portal. So backdate revocations can be done. So this is one we have to look into while approaching to the department for backdated revocations. This I think most of the members are aware. I will not take much time on this, because already I think some members would have already filed their returns today, GSTR 9 and to some extent. So whenever we are filing this GSTR 9, members, you know that there is a table 8A which keeps on changing with the season actually. So accordingly, now they have come out with one more amendment in the GSTN portal, where they said that you can review this GST table 8A of form GSTR 9 document wise. In the sense, you can review the invoice wise details and you can reconcile with your amount as reflected in your GSTR 9 table. That is table 8A of GSTR 9. You can review the data with the table 8A of form GSTR 9, which is reflected separately as document wise. So what you can do is you can download table 8A of GSTR 9, review that data, because that data is giving a detailed document wise of invoices, so that you can verify the details with your amount as reflected in your GSTR 9. So this is what the updation has happened for 18-19. This was not there for 17-18. Fortunately, we got it for 18-19. But the problem is still we are not able to reconcile many times because the figures are having a lot of variance. But anyway, we have to work on this. Until that, we may not be able to freeze our data when you are filing your GSTR 9. So most importantly, whenever we are filing GSTR 9 NIC, please see that you download the table 8A and do the reconciliations with the amount as reflected in table 8A of your GSTR 9, and accordingly you can file your returns. So you can excel your download by filing, you can do the reconciliations between 2A reconciliation and 8A reconciliation. So this will give a better idea of analyzing the information as document wise. So this will be not a consolidation verification, it will be a document verifications whenever you are going to file GSTR 9. So for this, you can again go to this GSTR, you can go to the service, you can go to that annual return portal. If you go to that prepare online, you can download the table 8A from directly on from that tile, and you can view the date of 8A for 18-19. So this is the one amendment which has happened. And this one more I was talking on bill of entry details in respect of import of goods in GSTR 2A. So you can check the details because earlier, if I have to check the IGST paid on my import of goods, I was relying on the source of information from IceGate. Now there is a consolidation of integration of informations between a IceGate and GSTN portal, and now you can review those data only through a GSTR 2A. So that way, I think we have to view on that, and we can see the details of IGST paid on import of goods. You can check the dates, you can check the port code, you can check the bill of entry number, you can check what is the taxable value, and you can check the IGST paid on import of goods. So directly you get a one source of information to verify your IGST details. So basically, this is the way it is reflected in the GSTN portal, where it is giving the details of import of goods from overseas on bill of entry and import of goods from SEZ. So it is bifurcating from outside the territory and from SEZ, and accordingly you can get a information of IGST paid on import of goods. So it will help you out to verify, to reconcile your credit taken in your books of accounts with the credit as reflected in this tile or of import of goods from overseas on bill of entry. Please remember, it doesn't include courier bill of entry. That is the one thing you have to remember. And separate tile is there for verification of credit relating to purchase of goods from SEZ. That we have to remember. And many times port code, if it is mentioned in the report, it will definitely help us to verify whether the goods are imported by sea or whether the goods are imported by air. So these are certain source of information which has been integrated in your GST portal, and you can verify the details accordingly. So there is a linking of IceGate website with the GST portal. And next is many times we want to access the informations of our vendors. So that option is there in the portal now. If you want to see your vendor's principal, if you want to do a due diligence of your vendor, the portal is allowing us to do the due diligence to some extent by going to understand what is their principal place of business, whether it is registered or not, whether what is the HSN SSC code they are using for their goods and services. So this information you have an access of your vendors and suppliers. So for this, what you have to do, you have to log in, go to the search by taxpayer tab. You have to search a taxpayer tab, and in that you have to search a GSTIN and UIN of that supplier. You put that GSTIN of your supplier, and you will get all data of that supplier. So you'll get his principal place of business, and you will get his HSN SSC code, which is using for his goods and services. So that data verification you can do in your portal itself. And next, what you can do is whether that supplier is filing GSTR 1 and 3B also, just to understand his compliance rating, just to understand his credibility under the GST law. You can even check whether they are filing GSTR 1, they are filing GSTR 3B, whether they are filing annual audit or not. So that benefit is given in the GST law, GSTN portal now. That what you can do is you can verify, you can again go to that website, you can check the taxpayer details. Only thing is earlier it was giving as a consolidated information. In total it was giving, yes, GSTR 1, 3B, it is filed. It was giving earlier like that. Now in the GSTN portal, they have made a separate columns for GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, GSTR 9 and GSTR 9C. They have made a separate column and they have said whether that person has filed that returns or not. So last 10-month data you can get of your vendor to understand whether he's filing GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, GSTR 9 and GSTR 9C. So all these 4 data can be viewed by your recipient actually. So as a recipient, I can view the details of my supplier. So many a times if he files only GSTR 1 and if he has not filed 3B, you can get to know that information. So this is something like return filing status of as GSTR 1 and 3B of your supplier. You can verify that also. So this is the one, and I think GSTR 2A more or less you all are well versed, and you all know members return formats in new return formats has been deferred now. So as of now there is only GSTR 1 which will be applicable, and no GSTR 2 and no GSTR 2 is implemented as of now, and we are totally relying on the GSTR 2A because that is giving a lot of details of returns filed by a vendor, and GSTR 2A is a basis for availing credit today. I think a lot of litigations are there. We'll not go into that, but that is a source of information which the portal is taking care, and accordingly it is allowing us to take the credit. Then the most important is in GSTR 2A they have added some more fields in that 2A, that is GSTR 3B filing status of supplier. Earlier it was not there. Now they have even given the details as GSTR 1 details we were able to get in 2A. Now we are able to see even the GSTR 3B filing status of supplier and even effective date of cancellation of supplier. Many times we were just purchasing the goods from the vendor, but he would have cancelled his registrations. So we were not aware of that. But now this 2A is giving you the additional information as whether the 3B, GSTR 3B is filed by the supplier. It is also giving the information of effective date of cancellation of supplier. So I think this will really validate our transactions with our supplier by adding this additional information in our GSTR 2A. So I'll take just another 5-10 minutes, then so I'll just hand over to Krishna sir. So this is also something in process actually. Many times what happens, you are filing your GSTR 1 and 3B should be filed simultaneously. So if GSTR 3B is filed without filing GSTR 1, then automatically you will get a message that you are not filed your GSTR 1. Then without filing GSTR 1, you cannot file your GSTR 3B. It is just in a pipeline. It is not yet validated. It is only for a verification. So we have to look into that, how it is going to work. So I think the lot of features of GSTR 2 and 3 which are deferred will be brought into in GSTR 1 and 3B itself. So they are going to bring out this integration of GSTR 3B and 1 and make it as a more functional and more interrelated. So this is the way we are able to see in the website GSTR 3B system computed. So system is automatically computing your 3B. You can just download it and verify whenever you are going to file your actual GSTR 3B for your verification. And it is not a validation, it is only for your verification. This sir will be taking in detail, but sir told me to take it in little briefer way. So I'll just tell, this is still, it has come very recently. We are very well versed with 2A. Now something added, it is now added as GSTR 2B. So let us understand what is this GSTR 2B. It is also a new report in form GSTR 2B which is released and available from month of July 2020. So already it's more than a month where this form has come. It's like a report and it can be downloaded without request. You need not request for this. Whenever you want to download, you can download this GSTR 2B. It is a static statement. So it is a static statement, as you all are aware. It is not like 2A. Then you can freeze the data up to 11th of following month. So whatever data has been freezed up to 11th of month, that freezing of data will happen only in GSTR 2B. And GSTR N will get data from IceGate on import of goods or import from SEZ and populated in GSTR 2B. So whatever the IGST you have paid on import of goods or import from SEZ, that will get reflected in your GSTR 2B. It is not a standalone basis for credit. Other condition of section 16 to be satisfied. You cannot say that I will take credit only based on GSTR 2B. It is only a statement which is giving the information of credit. So you have to fulfill all other condition of section 16 under the GST law. And this GSTR 2B is going to bifurcate your credit into available and not available. A question arose, how can the form itself will decide what is available and what is not available? Eligible and not eligible will be decided by us, but available and not available, to some extent it is reflected in GSTR 2B. So what are the issues where it will get, what are the cases where it will be uploaded? For example, not available. The supplier would have already uploaded invoices, but automatically it will be reflected as not available in your books of accounts because he has uploaded that invoice after a specified period or after the due date of that period. If he has uploaded that information, though it is reflected, it will show it as it is not available to you because that period has been crossed. Or many times you will see that you will be paying CGST, SGST of other taxes. That will be reflected in your respective GSTR 2B, but it will show it as a not available because it is a CGST and SGST tax of other state and it is not a CGST, SGST tax of a respective state where you are registered. So accordingly, this is giving a more wider information of as compared to a 2A. We have to just see how it is going to work upon that actually. So basically this GSTR 2B is giving the details of what is B2B transactions, what are the inward reverse charge mechanism transactions, what is input service distributor transactions, what is import of goods transactions, debit note details, credit note details, amendments. So it is quite wider to get all your inward supply details in a detailed manner in GSTR 2B. GSTR 2B have tables which can be directly linked to a GSTR 3B. It has been structured in such a manner that automatically the data will get auto-populated in your GSTR 3B. So you did not fill your GSTR 3B again. There are certain columns in 3B which is directly getting linking to your GSTR 2B. It will be auto-populated in 3B based on your 2B data. Documents uploaded by supplier in file GSTR 156 will be reflected in your 2B. So 1 is as usual your GSTR return, 5 non-resident and 6 is input service distributor. It will assist in identifying vendors who are delaying filing the returns. Many times there is always a fight between the recipient and the supplier saying that supplier has said I've already filed the return, whereas we will say that we are not eligible for input tax credit. So there is always a miscommunications or there is always a gap, or many times we hold the payment by not paying them the amount, saying that no, you have not offered the tax to the government, so we will not make a payment to you. So there is always a communication issues between a supplier and the recipient. So to some extent, this GSTR 2B will resolve that issue by giving a status of whether he has filed the return. Yes, if he has filed the return, at what point of time he has filed the return, so that you can decide whether you are eligible for input tax credit or not. No separate report from IceGate is required because this GSTR 2B is getting integrated with IceGate also. So whatever IGST you have paid on your import of goods, that can be reflected in your GSTR 2B directly. So automatically in 3B also it will get auto-populated. So it is like a summary report details. It will give you all summary report also. So basically we'll understand these are the only some points we can take it out, that the 2A is dynamic because it keeps on changing, whereas 2B will get your data freeze, and source of informations for 2A was GSTR 15678, and whereas for this it is only a 1, 5 and 6 and IceGate system. So ITC on import of goods will be reflected in both the cases. Reversal of ITC can be disclosed in GSTR 2B also, and it does not contain GSTR 1 filing date and period against each supplier. So we have to wait and see like how this GSTR 2B is going to work and whether it will work like a GSTR 2A, or what are the additional features which can be added in GSTR 2B so that we can get even the other details which are not there in our GSTR 2A. So GSTR 2A get auto-populated on submission of GSTR 1. So in GSTR 2B, it is on filing of your GSTR 1. So what happens many times if your vendor is just submitted GSTR 1, but if he has not filed the GSTR 1, still you can view in your GSTR 2A. Whereas in GSTR 2B, you can only view when your supplier has filed your GSTR 1. So there is a difference in GSTR 2A and GSTR 2B. So in GSTR 2A, you can even view that your vendor has submitted the GSTR 1. Whereas in GSTR 2B, you can view only if your vendor has filed that GSTR 1. So there is a difference between GSTR 2A and GSTR 2B. So GSTR 2A does not contain supplier-wise information. GSTR 2B will contain supplier-wise information. I think this is one more additional features which we'll have in 2B. We were not getting that, we were getting a consolidated information in 2A many times. So now this will give a name of the supplier and GSTR details that will be there in your GSTR 2B. That is one more additional features as compared to a GSTR 2A. So we have to just wait because as of now, I feel there is no specific section for 2B. We have to see how we are going to adjust in that, and we have to work out ineligible input tax credit, what has been computed as not available with what is ineligible input tax credit as we have to compute it. And there will be definitely a reconciliations issues because there are certain data which are reflected in 2A, there are certain details which are reflected in 2B, and there will be certain details in GSTR 1, 3B. So all these reconciliations issues will be there. We have to just wait and see how we are going to match on that, because simultaneously we are also calculating the provisional credit of 10% as per Rule 36 sub Rule 4. So that also reconciliations will be required whenever you are going to verify your input tax credit with your books of accounts. So this is the one. I'll not go much into this inverted duty structure. I think you can just look into that. One last point I wanted to add, because that was made in portal. So they are asking whenever you are filing a refund applications for inverted duty structure, please remember that they are also asking you the HSN and SCC details also, which we were not doing earlier. But now the portal, and based on that circular, they are asking you to give the details of HSN and SCC details and capital goods details and ineligible input tax credit. So that has to be filled in your Annexure B whenever you are filing a refund applications. Otherwise, it is getting rejected. So be careful when you are filing your refund application in inverted duty structure. And interest, as most of your members know, that it has been amended, and now interest will be computed on net cash tax liability, and it is not on gross tax liability. And based on this press release, which is issued in August 2020, automatically even it is applicable retrospectively also. So from 1/7/2017, we believe that the interest will be calculated on net cash tax liability and not on gross cash tax liability. So in case if you have paid, you can really look into for refund of that amount, whatever you have paid for it. So these are certain, sir will be talking on this. These are the certain issues which we are filing day to day. So let us hear from sir, because I have just given in brief whatever the amendments which were there in the GSTN portal in the recent especially during this pandemic period, whatever were there. I've just tried to add up here. So sir will be taking in detail on the other aspects of amendments and technical grievances. Please members, you can ask sir, because he is also a part of that committee. So if he is able to answer now, or you can just approach him on the respective issues, whatever you are facing in your day-to-day compliances process. So with this, I'll just end my sessions now, and I thank you, Bangalore branch, for giving me an opportunity. And we will take the question answers at the end of the sessions if the time permits with sir, or sir will be able to. Sir, after his sessions, we'll just decide if the time permits. We'll take a Q&A as, and if you have any specific Q&A, you can write it in. You can just post it so that we can look it at the end of the sessions. With this, I thank Chairman for giving me an opportunity as an introduction session. Hope the soup was tasty. I tried to make it little whatever possible. Sweet corn soup I tried actually. So now the sir will come out with the manchow soup. Yes, sir. So Murali Krishna sir, yes, I'll just end my session. With this, I thank you.
Thank you, Annapurna.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
I think President would address a few words, I think.
No, sir. We will take up afterwards only. Let's, after soup, we'll finish the meals. We are waiting for your session, sir.
Yes.
Over to you, sir, please.
Thank you, Ravindra Kore. Thank you, Annapurna. The long awaited, I think she was mentioning. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Ravindra Kore, and thank you, Annapurna, for giving an opportunity to. 1 second. Am I audible, Ravindra Kore? Yeah, thank you.
Perfect, everything.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I don't think Annapurna has left any stone unturned for me to address and technical issues to be taken it up. And already the time is already 5:15, another 45 minutes. I don't know how much I can cover within that particular period of time. But still, the long way awaited for the notification for financial year 18-19, 9 and 9C to be uploaded, submitted today is the last date, and the government of India's revenue has Department of Revenue has extended to 31st October 2020. That's what one good news I would like to say. And don't have another same kind of expectations that at least even e-invoicing going to be extended. Still now there is no such news. And as of now, the mandatory compliance for e-invoicing for the turnover have more than 500 crore. It's from 1st 10/2020, from tomorrow onwards, from midnight. And you might have seen the total discussion, the presentation by the Annapurna Kabra, and she was trying to explain so much of issues and so much of enhancement and all that in kind of GSTR 1, 3B, 2A, and what not. See, do you think all these issues to be present forever, and we have to move a little further forward? I think the best solution is the e-invoicing. The reason is that, see, basically, is already all are aware of it, and in Karnataka, and we started this project in 2014 of uploading of purchase and sales details, and we have certainly were successful to the 94% of taxpayers, and we got 80% of compliance of ITC credit. And this is the crux in the GST. Also, the basic crux is the ITC credit, and which, if it matches. And it's unlike that, no, there will be no litigations further on that. That's what presumption we worked on that. And with that particular perception of EU pass and coming up with the e-invoicing, certainly we have taken 6 years of long journey, and finally we could make it a reality in GST. Thanks to the GST Council and the GST network with the service provider NIC Karnataka, who are the backbone for rolling out of e-invoicing. And the way they have rolled out e-way bill, already 135 crore, the e-way bill generation has happened on the portal in the last 2 years. And if you look at that, let us look back the journey of how e-invoicing started. And let me take back to the some PowerPoint presentation, and we'll understand. And if you ask me in simple, what is the difference between e-invoicing and another? I can say the just invoice of any business person, only adding four the characters in that particular invoice, like IRN and QR code and e-sign. And those are three details will be added. Nothing else we're going to ask on this particular invoice. And it will be generated through the portal, that is invoice registration portal, that is the government of nominated portal. Through that web only it will be generated. It's not generated by the business per se. Let's get back to the PowerPoint presentation, and let's take to the in detail. And I should thank the GSTN, NIC, and also Government of Karnataka for giving the inputs on this particular presentation, because most of the slides are taken from the different sources. I should thank those sources first before getting into that. And this is how a picture can explain in 1,000 words how the GST is there. And you want to have this kind of a GST forever. And for a final simplicity, what we thought the GST 1 and 2 and 3 are going to solve many issues. But finally, you all are aware that how it happened and how things has happening. And the final solution we can think about is e-invoicing. And this one is famous quote I would like to say in all my presentations. And there's nothing to repeat. And always there's a next opportunity. Please hope for that. There's no end and there's no fail. And certainly there'll be a next opportunity, and we can learn the process. And there's one thing, those who don't know history are destined to repeat it. Always remember why I'm trying to tell you. We have a last 10 years of a struggle in implementing initiatives in the government of Karnataka, particularly commercial tax department. We started from 2008. I think you all are aware. Most of the chartered accountant and stakeholders in Karnataka, they are aware that how much we have progressed and what is our compliance. These are our initiatives of CTD till date in our earlier regime. And only we could not roll out e-refund system. Other than that, we did all of that. And we got quite a number of awards and recognitions for our activity. And it's there on the websites that we can look into it. And this is what are the compliance level of e-governance in the Karnataka. About 97.73 was the compliance level in government of the commercial tax department. And why we wanted to go for e-invoicing? If you look at from 2014 to 2020, if you look at it, you can see the ease of doing business where the India stands. See, from the rank of 134th rank, we are in 2020 the 63rd rank. The same rank, I can certainly say around 20 points rise will be happen by the next financial year of 2021 if you go for ease of doing business, is one of the factors get reckoned. That's the reason I think if you look at Indian ease of doing business activity, we are working at different levels in tax administration to see that it brings the simplicity and efficiency in administration. And well-being is after, as Aristotle said, that has been quite done very much in e-invoicing and started work by the NIC Karnataka somewhere in 2019 January itself. And in 2020, they deployed for testing on the sandbox and the API integration. And many, they had worked on that. In fact, it was scheduled to be launched in last year itself, but finally the day has come. From 1/4 April, they wanted to roll it for 100 crore and above. Finally, now at least from tomorrow, they are planning to for 1/10/2020 for 500 crore and above. And I think many the stakeholders might have seen the business papers and articles. Somewhere in 2016, one guy from Deloitte, global leader of Interact, David, said, Invoice-to-invoice matching is the only, in India is the only country that's doing it. Yes, that's what we had thought of at that particular time and finally rolled out to the ledger and invoice detail matching. Now today, finally, e-invoicing is coming, and once the invoice is successful for all the taxpayers, its invoice matching is not a difficult proposal at all. And this is what actually said seller and the buyer input tax credit of actually it has to be looked into. And for all that, there's a history for that to say that if you look at less than 2,000, 50,000 invoice value range, 32% of invoices are there in less than 50,000. If you look at more than 100 lakh, it's only 0%. So if you look at these B2B transactions, you can make it very clearly. Already the taxpayers are very quite familiar in generating e-way bill on the web portal, and they're very much used to do it on the web activity. And the next, if you look at the GSTR 1 slide also, wherein different 18 July, 18th August, 18th September, if you look at the data they've analyzed, because this is the precursor for rolling out of invoice, and they've understood that, okay, the taxpayers are familiar in uploading the invoices on the GSTR 1, and why not we should not go for uploading the invoices to the government portal itself. That's what it made them to see to that invoicing can be made a reality. And tomorrow is the day reckoning. And as I want to say, what are the objectives of invoice? If you look at it, objective invoice, total transparency, that much I can say for the taxpayers, even for the stakeholders, even for the administration. And it is one-time reporting. Once the invoice is uploaded, the data flow to GSTR 1 and the 3B. And even the e-way bill can be generated. And once the transparency is there, you are aware, even tax evasion can be reduced, and it will be efficiency in tax administration. That's what we are looking at it with the objective. The same, the different way of putting advantage of e-invoice, I want to say it's paperless, cost reduction, and internal controls, the better capital management, accuracy, which is all known facts from the time immemorial, like in the last 10 years. So end of the day, technology is going to bring the simplicity in the administration. And the basic few features of e-invoice, as I said already, always I say there's the manual invoice and e-invoice, there's not much difference. What I mean to say, the manual invoice, whatever the details are, the invoice number, invoice date, the description, whatever the content of the invoice is there, the same thing will be there in the e-invoice also. But additionally, you have a unique invoice reference number and QR code and digitally signed e-sign. So these are the three fundamental distinctive features of e-invoice, I can say. So it has a IRN, which is of 64 character hashed algorithm. If you look at the 64 character, I don't think you can able to identify, is it the invoice reference number? That's the reason the invoice number for any taxpayer, we are not going to change. He can have his own way of invoice number as prescribed in the rules and the act of GST, and the date and year, and the QR code Once again, the QR code, quick reference code, wherein the 8 details are captured, which I will explain the next slide. And finally, it will be digitally signed. Means once the invoice is coming through when the details of the invoice is uploaded to the system will going to sign digitally, and that will be the valid document by the of the taxpayer. And there will be only one IRN for each invoice of the supplier. There cannot be two. Only one IRN can be generated. And the IRN contains, as I said, it is an ASH algorithm, which contains 4 details. One is GSTN of the seller, and invoice number, and document type, means to say credit note or a debit note, or export invoice, or the invoice number, invoice details, and the content of financial year. This is how it looks. 64 characters of as I said earlier, these are 64 characters. It appears like this, and I don't think nobody can find out what kind of a language or kind of a data is this. This is a IRN. I'll just repeat the invoice reference number, which is unique to each and every invoice number. It will have a GSTN seller name, a GSTN seller, invoice number, document type, and a financial year. And the QR code, as I said, it contains once again GSTN of seller and the buyer, plus invoice value, invoice date, invoice number, and plus number of line items, and HSN of major commodity as per value, and unique IRN which is already generated. So out of these 8 details, the IRN is the QR code is generated. In that QR code, and it is useful for the officers to verify during verification on the conveyance, whenever the enforcement or the vigilance officer intercepts. With the QR code, one can verify also, and also the taxpayers also can verify that QR code with the QR code app available on the portals. Okay, and where all the invoices, e-invoices applicable, as I said, it's mandatory from tomorrow, 1/10/2020. It is mandatory for the taxpayers aggregate turnover, which more than 500 crores. Means aggregate means it's PAN based. If the turnover is across India, if it is more than 500 crores, need not be in one particular state. If it is more than 500 crores, as per notification 61 dated 31st July, it's mandatory. And it is only for B2B invoices. I want to mention it's business to business invoices. It is not business to consumer. It's only business to business. And export invoices are there, credit notes are there, and debit notes. Only these 4 category of documents you have invoice applicability is there. And in some of the transactions, the invoice is not applicable, like as a B2C transaction. Here, there is a lot of confusion among the chartered accountant and other fraternity. Somewhere in March 2021, notification is there, wherein B2C transaction, there will be QR code data taken, but that's only for payment of purposes, easy payment. But still, it is not enabled. I think GST will come out with some clarification over there. Presently, in the e-invoicing system, there is no B2C transaction captured. So, taxpayers need not worry about the B2C transaction to be captured for e-invoicing portal. Under B2C, there is no, but means to say any normal, the invoice can be generated without that is routing through the government portal. And for bill of entry, it is not there applicable now. So for SEZ unit, it's not there. And some of the service sectors like banking, financial, and non-banking financial company, and GTA, and supplier of passenger transportation service, and e-suppliers of service by way of admission to exhibition of cinematography films in multiplex screens, so in movie theaters. So in such cases, some services like banking, financial, and GTA, and passenger transport, and multiplexes, such services, it is excluded. I'll repeat once again: banking, financial, and non-banking financial companies, and GTA, and also passenger transportation service, and multiplex cinematography services. These services, the e-invoicing is not mandatory. It's not applicable as of now. There's no schema for that. And also for B2C transaction, business to consumer transaction is also not there. Bill of entry, import detail also is not captured in e-invoice. Another question, whether it is applicable for RCM. See, RCM, it is applicable means it's only those suppliers if they are paying RCM on the supply side. Means to say such means the buyers, they're going to pay the RCM. The supplier, where is applicability and such people outward, they have to generate the e-invoice, not for other category. That's one clarification I want to give it here. And as we, the next slide speaks about what are the different modes of creation of invoice. See, those who are generating e-way bill, I do not repeat once again, the same through the API-based, SMS-based, mobile app-based, offline. Many options are there, but right now only even the accounting software they want to release for the small tax base, it is not released yet. And GSP-based is already released, API-based is already released, and system to system is released. As of now, there are only 3 modes of e-invoice generation. One is offline facility, bulk upload tool is there. One is direct API integration, and API integration through GSP. All the 3 are been working, and already many of the taxpayers have enrolled because the next door itself, the NIC Karnataka is working on e-invoicing, and I just came from that particular place. Virtually, they're working 24/7 to see that it is rolled out from tomorrow. And most of the queries are coming from yesterday and today, day for yesterday. In fact, taxpayers are calling me on my mobile phone. It's issues in Sandbox, and I'm trying to say the taxpayers, if they won't come in time, how much of workload for any other department will be there. That's what I wanted to mention. Already many of the taxpayers out of 48,000 taxpayers across India, means 8,000 unique PAN number based, they already come into the picture. They're going to generate already the people, some of the taxpayers, more the automobile manufacturers and the FMCG, many such manufacturers and the service providers, they're already generating. And from tomorrow, I think there'll not be a problem since already they're working on that through API integration or through GSPs. Even GSPs, more than 35 to 40 GSPs have enrolled, and they're working, the taxpayers are generating the e-invoice through GSPs. And this is the schema flow, how actually it happens. If there's an IRN request from the taxpayer, our government portal IRN system takes it up the data. Once the data takes it up, it gives back to the taxpayer with the 3 things. As I said, one is IRN. It's a unique invoice reference number, which is 64 hash algorithm, which is very unique. And plus QR code, that's a quick reference code having, I think you have seen in all the shops and all that, the particular box. Who doesn't know about that QR code now? Everyone knows, even in a small bike or anything for a motor services, which is a last mile connectivity. Even cycles provide the QR code. People can work on that, and Paytm, the QR code. Any app-based, many QR code, that QR code is there. That's one question people ask me, officers, the taxpayers, where actually the QR code should be in the invoice. It can be at any place on an invoice, but only it should be legibly, it should be appearing. That space should be provided, that QR code will get appear over there. That's it. Once the QR code and it is digitally signed by the government portal, that IRN portal, see with the IRN, with the QR code, with the e-sign, the only 3 distinct features will come and sit on the invoice which belong to the taxpayer, and which he can issue, and it can see that the goods are moving. And if he wants to generate the e-way bill, and he can add on to the e-way bill the vehicle number, and that becomes the e-way bill. So by those who are generating e-invoice, please remember, e-way bill is not done away with. E-way bill is still, it is there. Remember, my dear friends, e-way bill is still, it is there along with the e-invoice. Don't think that just because the e-invoice is generated, e-way bill is not required. Still, e-way bill is there. That option is still continuous. Those who are already having e-way bill generated, the username, password, and all that, you're all aware of it. They can, with those credentials, they can generate the e-invoice. Those have turnover more than 500 crore and above, not for other taxpayers. And in some cases, taxpayers who are not enabled, there is the one additional option on the e-invoice portal they have given. Enablement means if they are not, you are not enabled, you can go to the portal, you can click it on enablement, you can enter your GST, and you'll get enabled. Further, you can do your testing on API, Sandbox, and all that, and you can work on that, the invoice portal. And for any queries, the invoice portal people will going to work on that. These are the schematic flow of the IRN. I'll repeat once again, the invoice details as prescribed by the Act. As prescribed, the Act is not changed. That will be there. And those details and the invoice, even additional, there are, say, I'll not go to the what is the mandatory fields and non-mandatory. There will be asterisks on that particular, and those details has to be filled mandatory. What is prescribed in the our the invoice details of the GST Act. Once those prescribed details are entered, the data it can be uploaded onto the bulk upload with the tool, or with the API integration with the system. Means your system and our system will going to talk to each other, or through the GSP. And a middleman means another GST Suvidha provider. You can through them also you can upload. Once they upload those invoices, it's not generation. Please understand. It is a uploading of the invoice details through GSP, through API, or through bulk upload onto the invoice portal. Once it will get processed those data, and it throws back the invoice with an IRN and a QR code and a digitally signed by the IRN system. So that's the uniqueness of, with the once again those details are generated, you can generate e-way bill also. That's the integration between e-way bill and e-invoicing system. And this is how I said, once IRN request, e-invoice system will come. You can have IRN, e-way bill number, signed QR code, and a signed invoice, that e-sign. This is how schematically a invoice, how it looks. You can see this is a 64 character algorithm of IRN, and this is a QR code. It's not properly done because of the cropping of, and this is the e-sign. See, all other details in the e-invoice we are not changed. The details as prescribed on the Act, it will be there. As per the Act, it will be there. Only the IRN and this QR code and e-sign, it is through the invoice system. It will come and put in a system on the your invoice. Okay, and the one cancellation of invoices of IRN, once it is generated, it can be done within 24 hours. But once the e-way bill is generated for that IRN, you can't cancel the IRN. That's the glitch. Please remember, before generating a e-way bill, so look at the IRN. If you want to have any cancellation, you have to look at that before that. And once IRN is cancelled, then one more IRN cannot be generated on the same invoice. Means to say, as I already said, one invoice number for one IRN. That's it. So if it is cancelled, then one more invoice cannot be same invoice number. Means to say, you have to cancel that invoice totally. You have to generate another invoice number, and for that invoice number, you can have IRN. I hope I make it very clear once again. Within 24 hours, once the IRN is generated, means to say e-invoice is generated through the IRN portal, that can be cancelled. Okay. But once IRN cannot be cancelled if the e-way bill is already exists for that IRN. Remember, if the e-way bill exists for the same IRN, you can't cancel the IRN. Another one is IRN is cancelled, then one more cannot be generated on the same invoice number. So that's also, that means you have to generate another invoice number for the IRN number. And you can retrieve the invoice details or the cancelled details through based on acknowledgement number or IRN number. Those who are saved on Excel sheet, copy and paste it, and you can click that. You can do that and generate. And these are the some of the details are all public domain. Any can verify QR code of the invoice. See, QR code verify app is there. Sample sign invoice JSON is there. Public keys are there. Verified sign invoice. These are all the things available in the public domain. Even public also, if the details they can verify. So it's a true invoice generated through the portal, uploaded by the taxpayer. And this is how the verified sign invoice appears on the your system. Once you click and enter the details of acknowledgement number or the IRN number, you can display the details separate and generated to the IRN portal. And the QR code can be verified by QR code verify app, which is available. It can be downloaded, and it shows once the QR code taken it up. And nowadays with technology, everyone knows how details are captured in QR code can be verified. This is how QR code verification can happen. And in a nutshell, I can say basically, if you look at the whole e-invoice system, I didn't find any much issues over there, except technical and jargons, and those issues will be addressed by invoice portal. And just to summarize by invoice system, to say that it is not generated by the taxpayer system. Remember, e-invoice is not generated by the taxpayer system. It is the invoice details uploaded by the taxpayer, but the invoice is routed through the IRN, invoice reference, that is the system. It will be routed through that portal. When it is routing through that particular portal, like through e-way bill portal, like for example, you will get IRN, invoice reference number of 64-digit character, hash algorithm. Next, you will get a QR code. It will be digitally signed through the system. These are the additional features on the system. Otherwise, we are not tampering any invoice details, which can be verified later. And with this, I'd like to say with this e-invoice system or any technological, we have challenges in digitizations. And already capturing the data uniformity is the biggest challenge. I'll not elaborate much on this. And infrastructure support, you're all aware of it, how we are, anybody is facing with that. And the major issue is behavioral changes of taxpayers. And even example 1819 for extension of time. I don't know how many WhatsApp messages I have received. I don't know how the taxpayers or the stakeholders, they have their own time. Unless the taxpayer comes and gives the data, what a stakeholder can do. So look at how a pandemic situation is playing its role. And changing the behavior of the taxpayer is the biggest challenge for adaptability of any system of the technology. And similar adoption of IEC measures and outreach activities, and the finally is relationship with stakeholders. Why I always say the government of Karnataka, when we did a e-invoice boot camp on 4th September 2020, we could able to get 1,400 participants. That is the feather in the cap of the government of Karnataka Commercial Tax Department. How we have connectivity with the stakeholders, let the chartered accountant, cost accountants, or the company secretaries, or the taxpayers. It is Naboto Navoshi, they can put it around. I don't think anybody can reach the 1,400 target population for, say, WebEx itself has a limit of 2,000. Okay, 1,000 only it can, we have crossed 1,035. It is enabled. Immediately we launched a YouTube channel, and around 310 people were attended to the e-invoice. Or NIC Karnataka, they demonstrated what I could today I present. The same thing was done by NIC. And plus, Srikhar sir and Nagan Kumar from CBIC, Srikhar from CTD, they gave an inaugural address. That's the maximum outreach we have conducted unseen in the history of the CTD department. What I mean to say, the end of the day, unless we have a good relationship with the stakeholders, we can't take it so forward. That's another challenge in digitization. We're happy to cooperate. We're happy to associate with all the associations to work and take it further forward. And further, any information in invoice system, anybody can log on, because many of these taxpayers and the stakeholders, they are chatting on my WhatsApp, and I'm trying to refer to the invoice team immediately wherever it is possible. Otherwise, certainly, honestly, they're working day and night to solve the issues of all the taxpayers. Please note down, these are the important links. It is available. It's there on the web portal. Once you click the portal, you get all the details. You can navigate through GST or e-invoice portal and all. And they have given a sandbox for testing purposes also. Already those people are already tested. They're already generating the e-invoice on the IRN portal. And if any feedback and suggestions, you are always welcome to give it to einvoice@gstn.org.in. And they are always there to give better systems in the days to come. And before ending, I'll just share with this how I can say the manual invoicing will be there in the earlier check post and the KST regime. This is what I would like to think how present compliance of systems are there in 3B and GST1. It's like matching between oranges and apples. Always apples and apples should be compared, not apple and oranges. We are comparing between ledger and the invoice, and we know what are the issues we are all facing it. And this is what I believe in. Once the e-invoicing comes and across the B2B, B2C, and all type of transaction, exports, whatever imports, all transaction, if it e-invoicing happens, all taxpayers, zero to any number of crores, I'm telling you, then I'm telling you what I said, ITC matching become a reality. Fraud will come down, evasion will come down. There'll be a smooth enough administration. It takes to come another 2 to 3 years. I think we can make it up. This is what I would like to say. The e-invoicing is a game changer, and this aptly up for our e-governance activities in state of Karnataka. Yes, this is what I would like to end my talk with a brief discussion on e-invoicing because of paucity of time. Let's open the session for question and answers, and chat box is open. Thank you, CA team, and thank you, one and all. Thank you, Ravindra Kore. Thank you, Annapurna.
Yes,
thank
sir.
you, Srinivas.
Yes, sir. Before we have listed out a few questions. The questions. When online application is filed on the portal, after how much time are approvals received? Say, for example, LUT.
No, see, let's restrict our discussions for the presented talk. I saw that particular question in the beginning itself.
Okay,
When
okay.
Annapurna Kabra is saying. Annapurna, can you say anything on that?
No, I think this LUT application for the pandemic year 2021, they have extended. So that is what. Otherwise, every year you have to apply for a letter of undertaking and you will get it within a respective time actually. So every year you have to apply for LUT, online application, because this year, due to certain pandemic situation, they have extended the time and they have said you can use 1920 LUT application itself as a reference number for exports of goods and services, whatever, without payment.
Okay. The next question is why do government need subheads in cash ledger? Why not keep just one GST cash ledger?
Repeat the question.
Why do government need subheads in the cash ledger? Why not keep just one GST cash ledger?
See, I don't know who is asking this particular question. Already, the last 3 years we have rolled out. You know the concept of what is IGST, CGST, and SGST. When we know those particular three concepts in the CES, we have to have different head of accounts for that. And we can't have one GST, and that is the future. We let us hope for that one GST will be reconciliation tomorrow. As of now, we have different head of accounts, which is an accounting purpose, accounting standards, and the GST is on that particular premise only. I hope I am clear, Annapurna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the privileges to receiver of input supply in current GST initiatives? And further is asked the once invoice issued e-way bill also to be generated. I think you have answered
Yeah, I'll
already.
read the questions now itself. What are the privileges to receiver of input supply in current GST initiatives? Input supply. What are the privileges? Annapurna, can you say on this?
I'm not able to exactly understand.
What are the privileges to receiver of input supply in current GST initiatives?
Can the respective person can explain in better manner, sir? From what?
I think he has to
No,
be, you have to unmute that thing.
no,
Then
no.
only he
Yeah.
can.
It
That
is
is not-
very difficult because it is
Very
nearly
difficult
600
because
members
out
are
of
there.
500 and odd people. I'll repeat the question. Once again. What are the privileges to receiver of input supply in current GST initiative? I don't think any no privileges at all.
specific privileges as such.
No, there's no specific privileges. And another, once e-invoice issued, e-way bill also to be generated, sir. I'll
That
repeat once
already
again. Yeah. Once e-invoice issued, e-way bill also to be generated, sir. Yes. Those who have a turnover more than 500 crore and above, only for those people, the e-invoice portal is enabled. Such people who have to move the goods in a conveyance, then the e-way bill is required. So through IRN portal only, e-way bill also can be generated. That data can be uploaded. Initially, the vehicle number also get uploaded. But later on, if there is amendment has to be done, it has to be done through the taxpayer or to the transporter or the receiver, as the case may be. Okay. Though for them, e-way bill is also mandatory for them. Where it is mandatory, it is less than 50,000. For the invoice, there is no mandatory. Okay, place less than 50,000. If it is more than 50,000 of value, consignment value, if it is generated by a taxpayer, we have a turnover more than 500 crore for B2B invoices. So e-way bill is required. Okay, if for B2C, he has to generate separately e-way bill. Okay.
Sir, what happens when e-invoice which cannot be edited or corrected for any mistake, incorrect or wrong entry in the invoice is not cancelled within 24 hours from the time of generation?
Yes,
I-
I'll repeat. What happens when e-invoice cannot be edited or corrected for any mistake, incorrect, wrong entry in the invoice is not cancelled within 24. For that, any amendment can be done only in GSTR 1, not in the e-invoice. It's a total standalone portal. There's no corrections can be done in the e-invoice portal. Even if it is not cancelled, if the data is there, the data will be there. Any corrections can be done only in the GSTR 1. Okay, not on the e-invoice portal.
Taxable and non-taxable supply can be added to invoice.
Yes.
So next question. My client was claimed ITC in 3B of financial year 2018-19 relating to financial year 17-18, well before due dates, but forget to disclose the same in GSTR 9 in ITC availed in subsequent year. What is the remedy?
No, he's disclosed in 3B, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has disclosed in 3B and he has not disclosed in 9 or 9C.
Yes.
I think 3B is an independent of 999C, no, sir, because it is.
See, just to remind the earlier enactment, always these disputes are always there. So I did in 3B, I did in GSTR1, and I forgot to do it. Why can't I do an annual? My dear friends, please understand, annual readiness standalone particular work given to the all consultants and across the country. Okay, that's a standalone. Whatever is reported in 3B, finally, what is finally is in GSTR1. Already for 17-18 time is over. 18-19 up to 31st October time is there. It's only annual return. Okay, this is nothing to do with in this particular thing. Any corrections under reporting or over reporting, we have to get our money. Okay, no corrections can be done in the annual returns. Only
Yes,
your
sir. What is their contention? It
Yeah.
was supposed to be done in 17-18, but
Yeah.
it is claimed in, they have claimed in 18-19.
It's gone.
Okay.
Astray. See, what you are not claimed in the right particular in that particular financial year, even coming to audit, this kind of questions will rise. A lot of litigations will be there. I know. If I can recollect earlier regime VAT 240, it was there. Some I don't know. I'm not unable to recollect the decision. Paharampur cooling systems, Paharapur cooling system. But
Paharapur.
still, I would like to repeat that this kind of litigations will be there. And what is not eligible, what is eligible only be given. What is reported in 1819, 1920, what is omitted can't be given back. Okay.
Sir, more questions are coming.
Yeah.
Rather than e-invoicing, it is annual
I know,
return.
that doesn't matter because
Okay, sir.
most of the
Fine.
child accountants and the people who are listening today, they are not generating invoice. I know they came to see to that these questions are answered.
Yes, sir. While I am filing annual return for financial year 2018-19, I see ITC claimed through Trans 1 in table 6K of Form 9. But this amount I already mentioned in financial year 17-18 of Form 9. Trans 1 was filed in November 2017.
This is a technical issue, sir, which is coming in GSTR 9 of 1819. So you can just ignore it, sir.
Ignore it. I think.
It can be.
Is a e-invoice mandatory for exporters whose turnover is below threshold limit?
See, that's what I'm saying. It's only for taxpayers who has turnover more than 500 crore. If you have their export transactions, such people they have to generate e-invoice at the portal, not for the less than 500 crore people. Okay.
Whether generation of e-invoice would obviate the necessary.
No, that's what already cleared. It doesn't obviate those having turnover more than 500 crore. We are doing e-invoicing. If they have to transport the goods, which is the value less than more than 50,000, e-way bill is mandatory. Is nothing but you can add another additional field to the data, your vehicle number. It's nothing but a e-way bill. Okay, that much I can say. That's itself is a e-way bill.
How long existing returns will continue? From when new proposed returns will come into force?
This is, I think you should raise to the GST Council and they will you'll get a clarity. Okay, I'm only implementer. I can't say anything on that.
E-invoice is mandatory. Can a GST dealer adopt voluntarily to have better transparent relationship without issues?
No, actually, it's a welcome thing that the taxpayer is asking. The days to come, it may become voluntary. As of now, the portal is not enabled for everybody. It is only enabled for the turnover more than 500 crore and above. Once the infrastructure is in place, I think they may enable for voluntary compliance also. Okay. As of now, it's only for taxpayers who have more than 500 crore and above. It's made mandatory.
How would corporate like Metro Cash and Carry, Reliance, Geomart work upon the e-invoicing?
I don't think it should be a problem for any MNC or any corporates. I don't think it's a problem for already they're adapted and most of the taxpayers have turnover more than aggregate turnover more than 500, like Reliance could be Future Retail or FMCG, any auto manufacturers, Ashok, any company which I already known personally, they're already enrolled and I think they're going to generate from tomorrow. But for B2C, it's not there. Please remember, it's only B2B transactions. Only for B2B transactions, e-invoice is required, not for B2C transactions.
Yeah, members, we requested to take up the put up the questions in the question answer box, and but again, few of the questions is listed in chat box. I'll try to find out. For your kind information, we are unable to download GST invoice after paying the members. Oh, it is, I think. different internally for e-invoicing. First page has the risk of vendors above 5 crores not filing their returns since they are not on e-invoicing mechanism. Risk of input GST available to large SSs. How do you address this issue?
Can I know who is the person who is asking question?
Venkat Krishnan Natarajan.
After Metro Cash and Carry?
No, sir,
to
they
see
have
that.
put in chat box actually.
Chat box. Okay, I'll see the chat box. 1 second. Yeah. What about the applicability of e-invoicing to SEZ unit having domestic invoicing? See, as I said, SEZ is non-applicable as of now. I think they may enable, as of SEZ is not applicable, enabled. E-invoicing matter of expo whose turn is below threshold that I answered. Whether generation of invoice would have obeyed the receipt that I answered. Can one entry by more than one relation the nature of service and risks? How long existing returns? That is also the chat box. Okay, I'm not getting the question, media.
Yeah, so that's are the questions. Whatever came it.
I said there is one Venkat Krishnan has said large SSC could ensure all their vendor base that is less than 500 crores to adopt e-invoicing system. This is to ensure complete value chain compliance. Can this be submitted maybe in 1 month time? And so this will help large SSC to secure their input GST.
Hi sir, this one is e-invoicing is applicable to cross charges.
Is invoicing is applicable to class? Say, end of the day, let us look at the transaction, the turnover. If it fits into aggregate turnover, if it's fits in aggregate turnover, let be B2B or B2C, both the transactions, okay? But it is mandatory only for the B2B transaction, not for the B2C transactions. But B2C transaction turnover is taken into for the aggregate turnover. Okay? So in such cases, even class charges will come under the consideration only. Am I right, Annapurna? Once it comes under consideration and is the PAN based, so even such people, if it is having a turnover more than 400 crores, okay, including all the turnover, even exempted, even non-GST supplies, even under GST exemption, all turnover comes under aggregate turnover. I think if I am right, I think Annapurna.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sir, what if the turnover is less than 500 crore in subsequent years?
See, the question is that, the notification is not clear. Even if you look at the 61, it's not clear whether it is a turnover for the current year or the previous year. For the basis of the rolling it out, they have taken the previous year turnover, those who have crossed 500 crores. I think once they start using e-invoicing of 500 crore and above, I think even if it is less than 500 crore, there should not be a problem once already they adapted to the particular system. It should not be a problem. It's only a time beginning, time is tickling. If it is today 500 crores, tomorrow it will be 100 crores. So better get in the compliance mode and start issuing e-invoicing. Those who have more than 500, even you have a fear that, or even if they think that they'll come down from 500 crores.
E-invoice needs to be generated for exempted or non-GST supply.
It's only for a taxable transaction and a B2B transactions, not for exempted supplies.
Okay. Will the auto-populated data in the EVA bill be revoked when an e-invoice is cancelled due to incorrect details?
No, that's what I said. Once the EVA bill cancelled, IRN can't be cancelled. So please remember, before generating EVA bill, IRN is proper. Once it is totally cancelled, then you have to go for another invoice number for another IRN number.
What about applicability of e-invoicing to SEZ unit having domestic
That's
invoicing?
what, as I said, SEZ, for SEZ transactions, there's no e-invoicing to be done.
Yes, sir. That's are the questions, and definitely it will be an once
It's a game
e-invoicing
changer, my
starting.
dear.
Yes, sir. Again, it's our rule. Chartered account says we have to get confirmation from the department. What is the turnover, sir, for the audit? The day will come. As you are asking in the bank audit, confirmation from the bank confirmations, and even banks doing like that, the process will come.
Sir, can you just highlight on this 2A and 2B, sir? Something can you just
that's what Annapurna was asking me in the morning. So I can't to take in detail about 2B. And actually, you should look at 2B and 2A. 2B is only a static and 2A is a dynamic. And still, as per the council decisions, we are trying to integrate between ledger and the invoice. Okay, and what I meant to say, if the GST1 is there, okay, 3B can be auto-populated. Okay, if the GST1 data is there, input tax can become populated and the outward supplies are populated. Please remember, it is only a statement. It is not a statutory mandate at all. It's a statement only to ease the taxpayers to understand where my ITC is there. And even for 2B, you should have applied GST1, should have been uploaded by the supplier. If the GST1 were not uploaded by the supplier in time within that particular cutoff or 4th or 5th of that particular day, the 2B will not get, though it is auto-populated with insufficient data. So it's only a guiding factor, and 2A is a dynamic factor. If you're filing your return on 19th or 20th, certainly 2B you can take it as a guidance, and 2A data will come. Certainly you can upload your 3B with the data availability. Don't think that, okay, the 2B bandilla 2A nallide nan tagollabedo. No, nothing. It's only a guiding factor. That's what I wanted to say. From August 2020, they have released. It's on the portal now. Okay.
Sir, this provisional credit we are talking as a 10%. So whether the data, whatever we are relying, is it a static data or it keeps on changing? So how we reconcile it? Is 10%
I think that's what, see, what we are trying to, if you look at the administrator point of it, we know how we are tackling. It's not that, I know it's a burden on the some of the company, too much of that of 10% of the credit is going to get blocked and all that. But if the taxpayers comes with the proper explanations to the proper officer, I think they're unblocking that particular data and they're enabling it. That should not be, it's only a preventive measure to see that the input tax is not flown from the system just like that. So that's the reason we're working on that. All these things will go off, I'm telling you, everyone, if the e-invoicing comes into picture for all the taxpayers, all these issues and litigations not be there. Yeah. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, one more question, sir. That is continuing with the Mr. GS, but the last
Yes.
he is mentioning that my question is, SEZ need having domestic invoice with tax.
No, as you said, with the domestic invoice with tax, I think they have to generate. It's a B2B transaction. They have to generate, not to the SEZ as such. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
See, still, one should welcome the whatever the government is doing it in a bits and pieces, and it is a long-awaited thing, which in fact we were thinking in 2013-14, where Karnataka Department wanted to roll out e-invoicing for at least from sectors. At least, really, I'm happy to see that what has a project aid, what we saw EU pass, and now finally is realizing as the e-invoice in. I'm little disappointed when it was 100 crore to 500 crore. At least it will come to 100 crores. In fact, I was telling to my senior officer why we should not make it voluntary, so that if it is made it voluntary, I was telling to everybody, with all your cooperation, with the assistance of the stakeholders, let us see, but Karnataka makes the flagship, and we'll be the first state to see to that invoicing rolled out for everybody. That's what I was discussing it. Let us hope for that. Once it comes, I'm telling you, my dear friends, invoice matching and ITC credit flow, it's not any problem. I think at that time, 2A, 2B, everything will take a backseat. There'll be no linking between 3B, 9, 8, and I don't want to say how many returns are there. Okay. Yes, Ravindra Kore.
Yes, actually, sir, if it is made it voluntary, as suggested by my good friend Chikkeru, he suggested for voluntary. If you make it, at least this year, okay, sir, 500 crores. Let's try for next year onwards. If you make it voluntary, because a small businessman, it is easy for them to spend, because now it is all everything adjusted with the
That's what
virtual.
Ravindra said. I said when we rolled out e-way bill at e-Sugam, we started only with the 10 commodities. Now it is 40 commodities earlier. Now in e-way bill, each and every goods more than value of 50,000. As of today, 135 crore people have generated e-way bill. It's not a small joke. And moreover, if you look at that particular e-way bill data also, I'm just sharing with you, more than 80% they're on web, only in the system they're generating, not with API, not with GSP, not with any ERP, not with any support. Means to say, once it's web enabled, if it comes, Means to say they're also putting this infrastructure in place. Once everything happens, I'm telling you, once it becomes voluntary, I don't think Karnataka taxpayers will be reluctant not to generate e-invoice. So when they know how to generate e-way bill, do you think they will not generate e-way bill, e-invoice? They will upload and they will generate. That's what my strong belief. And I will spearhead. I'll be there for another 3 years in the department, months to go, so that I'll see to that once it becomes voluntary, I will travel nook and corner of the state the way we did in UPass. We need your assistance from the CAs and CMA, everybody. We'll make it a reality in Karnataka, at least to begin with. That's what my belief and my hope.
Sure, always we were department can go and sleep night, but CS will not able to sleep, sir. We are having the extension update. It is one side we are asking extension update. Again, we are everything we forgotten. Our cash flow, everything. Now it is only thing is our task to help our clients. Like
Good.
our paternity members are working. Definitely, I would recognize, sir, your presence for the today's session, and you are always helping hand for the members.
We are always there.
As you are connected to all our many members, definitely, because that is the objective, or whatever the professionals and department were working. The objective is to the government has bring the law, and we need to be successfully implement that law, and this will help for the society in large. So all togetherly we need to work for that.
Yes.
Definitely, our chartered accounts patronate will be always ready to help the government for whatever the initiatives taken up.
That's what the saying say, Rome is not built in a day. Okay.
With that note, sir, I'm very much thankful for the Madam Annapurna Kabra for taking these initiatives, because normally earlier in our physical programs we used to have our schedules 2 months advance, and we are going on to adding. But now our head office is restricted to conduct only 10 webinars. So at least 1 month in advance we are planning. The last month itself we have planned. So on behalf
Thank
of all the viewers and managing committee members of Bangalore branch, I must thank Annapurna Madam for taking initiative and talking with Murali Krishna sir. She is as like representing our managing committee.
Thank you, Ravindra Kore. Thank you.
So my special thanks to Dr. B.V. Murali Krishna sir. So for addressing our members, and just he's open the window. What will be the invoicing, and what will be problem? Just it is an open window. Definitely our members will have got the benefit, and with in a relaxed manner. The date has got extended, and we have also received recent now news of.
That's what I said. After extension, only people start listening to my talk. Till then, they were not at all interested in things.
And we got an extension for 1920 assessment income tax related returns.
Yeah, I saw that.
The date also got while session is in progress. We got that news. So,
yeah.
On behalf of all the viewers, sir, and on behalf of managing committee members of Bangalore branch, I wholeheartedly thank you, sir, for addressing our members, and definitely Bangalore branch is ready to conduct more programs on this topic, and with workshop like kind of choose members. Before handing over the session to Secretary Srinivas, this is in our 65th session. We have completed Dhyana Dasova. And next month, October, we have planned 10 programs in the month of October on 7th October, 8th, 9th, and then 14th, 15th, and 16th, and then 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, and 28th. It's all 10 sessions we have planned, and very short time we are releasing the brochure and newsletter. We are publishing all the programs. With that note, once again, my special thanks to Annapurna Kabra Madam and Dr. B.V. Murali Krishna sir for addressing our members.
Thank you.
I request Srinivas to render the formal vote of thanks for the today's speakers and all the viewers. Vote to Srinivas.
Okay. Sir, it was an amazing session. Definitely, how many times you listen to both of you, it will be a new session, because new points and new takeaways will be there from your session. We thank, and in your busy schedule, always whenever you call, you will come and address our members. It's our pleasure to have you on our webinar today. I thank on behalf of Bangalore branch of ICA for your time and efforts in sharing your knowledge. Thank you, sir. And I also thank Annapurna Kabra madam for whenever we say, madam, we want to do some program, immediately she will organize and will select the topics and she will be ready with the information. I thank because she is our own family member. We cannot say outsider. She is only a fraternity member. I thank on behalf of Bangalore branch of ICA and all the MC members and viewers, madam. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
sir.
thank
Thank you
all
all.
the viewers and members who actively participated in today's program. I thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.